Even though there's not much of a problem with racism, sexism, or religious tolerance in my school, I know it's a problem for many. What can teens do to make a difference?
Um, I think a lot of our lifelong attitudes and approaches tend to be embedded when we are in adolescence, and so it becomes especially important in high school to build a more tolerant approach. And I think that there one of the crucial things is simply exposure and building friendships that cut across different barriers. And I think one of the unfortunate trends has been that the U.S. has become, in some ways, more divided, so that any given school is very likely to be overwhelmingly minority, black or Latino, for example, or overwhelmingly white, and that people often don't have those kinds of just really warm friendships that aren't about race, but are just about a friend, that I think kind of humanize different groups.
How do you feel about the idea that Westerners should stop interfering in African, Asian, and South American problems and let the people in those places work out their culture's problems for themselves?
Well, I'm very skeptical of it in the sense that, in places like Darfur, the way their problems are being worked out is that the guys with the guns are shooting the people without the guns. So in that kind of situation, I don't think we should stand back to let the problems work themselves out. But in another sense, I do think that there is something important there that I think too often Americans march in and say, oh, we're educated, we know about the world, and so sort of pick up the megaphone and tell everybody, okay, here's what we're going to do. And they don't listen enough. And I think that's one reason why some of our development efforts haven't gone as far as they could, that we often don't fully understand the societies that we're trying to tinker with, that we have great intentions, but spend a little too much time organizing people and not enough time empowering local people, and that the result is that we accomplish less than we might.
What are some common myths about developing nations that you would like to dispel?
I think that there tends to be this sense that there may be a couple. I think there's a fairly common feeling among Americans that Africa is hopeless. Their views about Africa tend to be shaped by the worst performing countries there. People think of Africa, they think of Sudan, Congo, riots, war, religious conflict, and all those things are real, but they're also unusual in a continent that overall is actually enjoying economic growth and more stability and a slow move toward greater democracy. It's one of the things that I worry about as a reporter, that by focusing on the massacres and the mass rape and all the other bad things, that I'm leaving people with a misperception about the continent as a whole that discourages tourism, that discourages studying abroad, that discourages investment. And that's a fine balance for a journalist to maintain. So that would be one misperception, that we don't adequately account for the successes. And the other is maybe the sense that a lot of the problems are due to very different cultures, and that as a result, nothing we can do. If one looks at Afghanistan, for example, where there's certainly an awful lot of Afghans think that girls shouldn't be educated, or there's a real nervousness about girls' education. So you think, well, that's religion, that's culture. can't do much about that. And in fact, I think that that is indeed an element of Afghan culture, but cultures change. They're not impervious to internal and outside pressure. And maybe one good example of that is that Bangladesh used to be a part of Pakistan until 1971, and then it invested heavily in girls' education. And so today, actually, in Bangladesh, there are more girls in high school than there are boys. While in Pakistan, on the other hand, girls are lag way behind boys, and in the tribal areas of Pakistan, female literacy is only 3%. So, cultural obstacles are real, so are religious ones, but those obstacles can be overcome.